The cantina sequence in Star Wars also goes back to my Cloaky Productions connection, because all my friends, Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett and John Berg and Ken Ralston, were all working on this Star Wars movie, and they had shot it all in England. Stuart Freeborn, who did the Chewbacca thing, and he also did a lot of the Cantina aliens, but he was kind of ill at the time, and George wanted more. He wanted more aliens and more different kind of looking things. After they'd already filmed it, he was cutting the stuff together. He just says, we need more stuff. Dennis Muren said, I know this guy that does this kind of work. So they called me up and went out. I met George at the beginnings of ILM, which was over in Van Nuys. He showed me the sequence, which I was just blown away by. That was so cool, such a cool idea, and I thought it was pretty neat the way it was, and he just said he wanted to do more, so he wanted to add another 30 aliens, so we did 30 different aliens for that. Very short amount of time, very little money, and not as elaborate as I had hoped to do them, because they really were just like Halloween masks. I mean, they were slip over your heads, but and it was shot in a day, the stuff that we added, but most of the beginning of the Cantina sequence is the aliens that you see at first were ones that we did. The Cantina band was one that we did, and I use this as an example all the time when I talk to people about film, which is one of the great things is it's cuts, and this cut doesn't have to happen the same time the next cut does. And I said, Star Wars, and they said, oh, and it won't look the same. And I said, did you see Star Wars? Yeah. The Cantina sequence, the Cantina band that's in the Cantina there, yeah. That was shot in England, The Cantina band was shot in the United States by a completely different crew, like 6 months later, Nobody knows, It's a series of cuts, So we can put the shot in later when we can do it better, and it'll look just fine. We had, again, like slip rubber masks where there's one that's kind of like a devil-like character that was a design I did for a movie that never happened that we used in there. And it's just a mask that was sculpted on my face, and they just fit snugly around the eyes, so you used real human eyes. Some had fake eyes on them. We had some things that were just completely puppets. There was this one thing we called Hammerhead, which was just this big weird head, like hammerhead shark kind of thing, which had low animatronic eyes. It was the assortment of different things. I wanted to do more puppety things and more outrageous stuff, but we didn't have the time or money, really. Star Wars happened right after I did King Kong, which I played King Kong in the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong. Not the way I wanted to, but I played King Kong, and it wasn't the suit that I wanted to build. But anyways, I was on King Kong. I was given a script for a movie at the time. It was called The Ghoul from Outer Space, and I was, I remember like sitting, in a gorilla suit, trying to read this script through my contact lenses. It made my vision real blurry. I was thinking, I can't go from and this was at the time like a $25 million movie, which is a really big movie at that time. I can't go from a $25 million movie to The Ghoul from Outer Space, So I thought I'll like price myself out of it. So I gave a bid for this movie, and it was like, I think like $10,000. Well, they went for it, So I was doing, which ended up becoming this awful movie called The Incredible Melting Man. So I was doing The Incredible Melting Man. The actual $10,000 bid that I gave was more than what we got to do Star Wars, and they were happening simultaneously. So I was sculpting Star Wars stuff and Incredible Melting Man stuff, and I put together a crew to do Star Wars, which again were a lot of my stop motion friends. And as it turned out, the one day that it filmed, I was applying the Incredible Melting Man makeup, and they were paying me more basically, and it was kind of like my first obligation, so I had to do the Melting Man. So I missed out on this Star Wars. But some of them were heads that I had made. Some were heads that I'd already had, some things I just did on my own, But my crew who made them, a lot of those guys did wear the masks and play the band. And there were things, that's when I started having a crew, and it wasn't just all me, that I started learning that you have to think for other people when you have a crew, which I didn't like that concept, you have to answer a lot of questions. You spend the more people you hire, the less time you actually have to do work, And one of the things that I didn't even think to mention to these guys, because it was so ingrained in my thing from making masks and all that, you have to be able to breathe when you have one of these things on. And one of the things that they found out is the band members is they didn't make provisions in the masks for good breathing or for seeing. They had these band member masks on, which at first they weren't getting enough air, and all of a sudden you'd see the head start caving in as if we're breathing, And so they kind of learned, the stop motion guys learned a little bit about makeup stuff in that day.